third base is I'm going to keep your entrails from spilling out after you've been stabbed and I've woken up in your body. And then fourth base is whatever the fuck was going on when Harrow was regrowing Ianthe's arm. Welcome back to my spoiler-filled discussion of the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. This is going to spoil all 3 books. If you have not read up through Nona the Ninth, you will be spoiled. This is your warning. If you want my non-spoilery thoughts, I filmed a whole separate video for my non-spoilery thoughts on this series. Go check that out. I talked for a long time somehow without spoiling it. So go watch that if you want to know about the series. And if you have read the series and you want to hear my thoughts and opinions about it, stay tuned because we're gonna dive in. Okay? All right, you've been warned. Okay, let's talk about spoiler time of what I was feeling throughout this series, starting with Gideon. So like I said in my other video, I was definitely expecting this book to be more romance heavy. And so it was a little frustrating for me, I'm not going to lie. But I was held on and kind of like strung along by the little crumbs that we got of the development, right, of Gideon and Harrow's relationship. To this day, I think it's like a debate within the fandom whether or not they even have a romantic / sexual thing going on or if they're purely friends. To me, I think it's crazy to think that they're just platonic. Although I do, okay, disclaimer, I understand that using a phrase like just platonic and like just friends in and of itself is kind of like problematic in that like who the fuck is to say that friends and platonic relationships mean anything less than romance or sexual relationships. Believe me, I am like the first person to vouch for and to like pledge my allegiance to the holiness of platonic relationships and committed love in the form of non-romantic love. Believe me, that is like my whole fucking thing. So don't come at me for saying that I'm mad that this was just platonic, because I understand, believe me, I understand the beauty and the value of non-romantic, non-sexual relationships, and I think that we as a whole, as a fucking society and world, need to get on board with that. However, with the specific relationship between Gideon, Nob, and Harrow Hark, Nona Jesimis, I want them to fuck. I'm sorry. I want them to at least make out, okay? We can keep it PG-13, I don't know. I still don't know if these books are even considered young adult or adult. I think they're like 17, 18 in the first book, but then they, like, by Nona, I think, isn't Nona like aren't they like 19 by the last book? I don't know. Time passes, okay? But anyway, it doesn't matter. We don't have to go rated R, whatever. I'm not saying that I need just to see them doing the nasty for the sake of it. I'm just saying I think that they have sexual chemistry and I want to see it happen. I want to see the culmination of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Soapbox done. So, I was a little frustrated reading this book, because if you are Team Griddlehark, hashtag, I don't know why that's their ship name, but it is apparently, according to Tumblr. If you are team Griddlehark, you have to be prepared for the slowest slow burn of your life. Okay, this was like, this put the slow in slow burn, dude. But it was still fucking beautiful. Like, the pool scene is the scene where I was like, okay, that was the turning point for me, where I was like, I am fully committed to this series now. I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah, that was where I was like, okay, I'm in deep. Yeah, finding out that, like, Harrow's backstory, how she is, like, the product of, like, 200 dead children. The fuck? And, like, how both Gideon and Harrow blame themselves for the death of Harrow's parents. Oh my god. And, like, I love that Gideon just kind of, like, instantly forgives Harrow when she hears her side of the story. I don't know. I've seen some people kind of debate about why she did that. I think it makes sense. I think that both of them were just, like, super failed, you know, by the adults in their life. And also, I think one of the things I will say with Gideon as a character, and this is also just because I am a psychology nerd. I'm, like, in school for counseling, and, like, I know, I feel like I understand very deeply, you know, like, what kind of creates a person's personality and habits and patterns and all of these things, right? I understand how trauma and attachment and all of these things kind of create a person, especially a character in a book. And one of the things that I was curious about, that I don't really feel like we fully got to understand, is how Gideon kind of, like, coped with not really having anyone to love her at all growing up in the ninth house. This is the one part that kind of doesn't add up for me. Again, as someone who is a psychology nerd, I'm like, you were an orphan, which means you automatically have attachment issues. The nuns who raised her are described as, like, not being very, like, soft or loving at all. So I'm like, okay, so you had pretty much zero, like, adult attachment figure. The only positive, possibly, attachment figure that she has is Aglamine, whatever the fuck. Her sword teacher, right? She's probably the only person who, like, loved Gideon in any way, shape, or form. And even that wasn't, like, the type of, like, love expressed in the way that, you know, most people who grow up healthy would want to have, you know? So I just want to know, like, how she didn't end up more insane. Because I think she would honestly be a lot more fucked up than she is. But again, that's just me kind of nitpicking from a very, like, psychology trauma studies perspective. So I don't know, maybe it does make sense, maybe there is a reason that we could explore, but I also think it's interesting how possibly part of that could be, even though she hated Harrow and they hated each other, I think underneath that there is a sort of attachment where it's like, you know, okay, we can, like, fight each other and hate each other, but also, like, you're the only other, like, there was the only other kid her age. I think that there was, like, I think Harrow is like, I mean, obviously they have a very strong attachment, but I think the hate that they had for each other was honestly just kind of to like disguise the fact that like they were each other's only friend. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. So anyway, that's really all I have to say about Gideon. I loved this book. Again, kind of only loved it after I read it, but thinking back on it now, I'm like, that was great. The only side characters I really cared about were Camilla and Palamedes. I know it's supposed to be Palamedes, but whatever, I say Palamedes. The other side characters I couldn't keep straight. To this day, I don't know who was whose uncle in the 8th house. With Silas and Colum, I kept getting so confused. I was like, who is whose uncle? Who is whose uncle? Who's the uncle? Who's the nephew? Who is the cavalier? I could not keep it straight. I couldn't tell you to this day. I don't know. But yeah, Dulcinea was kind of interesting. The thing with her and Gideon was kind of fun. I kind of wish something did, like, I feel like they could have at least had a kiss or something. Like, also it was really funny how like Gideon at the end when she finds out that Palamedes like has a thing with Dulcinea, she like freaks out and is like, oh my god, I'm a homewrecker. At that point I was kind of like, girl, y'all got other things to worry about. She's into like, I have to go find Palamedes and apologize to him. I didn't mean to be a homewrecker. And I was like, girl, y'all got other things to worry about. People are dying. Like, y'all are like running for your life right now. I think that can wait. Like, it's okay. But anyway, yeah. I honestly, like, I also couldn't really keep track of what was going on with the third sisters in this book. I was confused about why Corona Beth needed a key, because I was like, can't she use Ianthe's key to get into the facility? I'm still kind of confused about that. I don't know. There's a lot of details about the side characters that kind of I just let fly over my head, honestly, because I was like, I don't have the capacity to follow this. So yeah, that's really all the whatever I was able to retain of Gideon the Ninth. So, let's move on to talking about Harrow. Okay, I have to tell this story of how I started reading this book. So, I finished Gideon the Ninth on a plane, okay? I was going home to Houston, and it was like a 4-hour plane ride. Before I got on the plane, I was like messaging someone who had read this book, and they were like, LOL, like, get ready to cry or something. And I was like, no, why would you tell me that? I had like 100 pages left. I was like, no, why would you tell me that right before I'm about to get on plane reading this book? Because I didn't know that the ending was going to be like sad or anything. Like, I didn't really know what to expect. And so I was like, fuck, am I going to fucking cry? And so then I was like anxious already. So then I got to the end, right? And the end is beautiful. Like, it's so... Like, I will say, one thing I wrote in my notes, while this book is not explicitly enemies to lovers, it is, like, slow burn, like, enemies to, I don't know what we are, but I will gladly give up my soul for you. So, you know, like, the fact that Gideon, at the end of this book, is like, I will die. I'm gonna die for you, Harrow, and you're gonna suck up my soul and become a lictor. Come on. So yeah, that was insane. That was beautiful. I don't think I cried, but I was feeling a lot. I was like also listening to Hosier's soundtrack while I was reading it. Hosier's new album, Unreal Unearthed, while I was reading like the end of this book, and it honestly was like really fun to like listen to that album while reading. I was like reading like, you know, the end. Also the fight scene, the final fight scene was like the longest fight scene of my life. It went on for so long. Fight scenes are another thing that I tend to kind of zone out of because I just can't follow all of it. I'm like, who is doing, like, it's just too much for my brain. And so that was honestly a little bit too much for me, but it was fun to read the fight scene with Hosier playing in the background, I will say. Anyway, Harrow, right? So I finished Gideon. There was like an hour and a half left on my flight. I had Harrow, the ebook, downloaded on my phone. And I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do for the rest of the flight? I just got my heart ripped out. I just watched Gideon die. What the fuck? I need to see what the fuck happens next. So I got out my phone. Like I said, I had Harrow already downloaded on my phone. And I started reading it. And then I, quickly come to realize that in Harrow, shit does not add up to what you just read. In that Harrow does not fucking remember Gideon. When I realized that she didn't remember Gideon, I was like, I thought that I had just like hallucinated everything I just read. I was like getting so freaked out. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? I was like, where the fuck is Gideon? I was like so distressed, and I couldn't look up a spoiler because I was on a plane. I didn't even have Wi-Fi. And so like, I was just distressed. I was like questioning everything. And like, because I was on the plane, you know how some planes have like, I was on fucking JetBlue. God, anyway, you know how like, there's like a screen on the back of the seats and it sometimes will like tell you how much longer the flight is. It was like showing me that there was, like an hour left to land, and then it would like go down a little bit. It would like go down to like 45 minutes, and then it would pop back up to an hour. And it kept doing that. Like they kept adding more time to the flight while I was losing my mind, thinking that maybe I just hallucinated everything I just read, or like maybe I was also thinking like, what if the events of this book didn't even happen and like Gideon is just a figment of Harrow's imagination or something? I don't even know. I thought this was gonna be some weird shit like, oh my god, have any of y'all watched that movie on Netflix called I'm Thinking of Ending Things? I think it was also a book. That shit fucked me up so bad. Oh my god. Anyway, I thought it was gonna be some shit like that where it's like the fucking thing that happened didn't even fucking happen, and like this is all made up. And so I was like losing my mind, okay? And I thought the fact that my like flight time kept like going down and then like restarting, I was like, am I in a time loop right now? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I was losing my shit, dude. It was not fun. It was not enjoyable. Anyway, as soon as I landed, first thing I did, I went to Wikipedia. I will say, the Wikipedia for this is, like, really good. And I was able to just kind of scroll down enough just to see that, like, Harrow fucked with her memories and, like, cut out Gideon from her memories because she wanted to preserve her soul. And I was like, okay, we're good. And I also figured out, and I also did kind of think this when I started this, because I realized this is told from second person POV. That's interesting. The existence of a second person point of view implies the existence of a first person point of view. You can't say you without implying I. And so I was like, who is telling the story? And I was like, oh my god, is Gideon the narrator? And I did think that before I even looked up the spoiler or anything. I was like, what if Gideon's telling the story? But then I was like, but there's no mention of Gideon and everything is fucking weird. And then I was freaking out. So then I looked up the spoiler and I was like, okay, Gideon is the narrator. And honestly, knowing that just filled me with so much relief that I think I was able to enjoy this book so much more than I would have been able to otherwise, because I would have been so like triggered and out of my mind trying to figure out what the fuck was happening. That I'm really glad I looked up that spoiler. Honest to God, that spoiler saved my life. That made me so happy. It made this book enjoyable, because instead of missing Gideon the whole time, I could just remind myself, she's telling the story. She's the one telling the story. She's here the whole time. And that just gave me so much comfort and like relief. And then once you know that, you start to pick out on like little things that Gideon says through the like you point of view, where she's like roasting Harrow a little bit. Like she'll like say things like, you never knew how to, you never figured out how to work the sword. You never knew anything about swords. Like she kind of roasts her for her lack of sword knowledge. At one point she also says like, you were such a little bitch when you're angry or something. And like there's so many little things that you can pick up on of like Gideon just like subtly roasting Harrow, and it's so good. Like that made me so happy when I was reading this book. And this book is a lot darker. It's a lot darker. And just having the knowledge that Gideon was telling the story just made it so much enjoyable for me. So yeah, I mean, if you're still watching this, I assume that you have already like read this, but if you haven't, and this is the spoiler that you are just now finding out about, you know, still go and still do it, still read it, because it will still be enjoyable. I think it was still enjoyable for me. So yeah. This book was insane though. I just did not, I could never have conceptualized of pulling off a story like this. Like the fact that it's half of it is in second person point of view is crazy. You never get books like that, but it works so well because it's not just a stylistic choice. It's also, it serves the plot. And then when the you turns into I at the end and we get first person Gideon point of view, oh my god, I lost my shit. That was so nice. That was so nice. And that whole section where Gideon is like talking to Harrow and she's like trying to like get Harrow to like come back. Ah! Ah! Oh my god, that was so good. It was so good. I was like so happy and like also heartbroken at the same time. And then we find out so much crazy ass shit about God / Jod. I've seen a lot of people in the fandom call him Jod because his name is John and he's God. Anyway, he's a very interesting character, I will say. I was very intrigued. I love that there was a threesome with God and Mercy Morn and Augustine. That was really funny. Also, we get a lot of Ianthe in this book. Ianthe is a very chaotic character. I kind of love her though. Like, I kind of love that she's just kind of this chaotic evil character. And like she definitely had some kind of tension or something going on with Harrow. They kind of, I don't know, their relationship was very strange. I think Ianthe definitely has some kind of feelings for Harrow. I don't think Harrow returns them. But I think there might be a little bit of attraction, but she's kind of like scared of it, which is understandable. The part where like Harrow is like bleeding out and Ianthe comes in and is just like, huh, and then just like walks away. I was like, oh my god, that was iconic. That was kind of iconic. So yeah, chaotic ass character. And then at the end we find out that Gideon is the fucking Son of God, Jesus character. Like, what the fuck? I was like, are you kidding me? Gideon is the child of God? I was like, what? That was insane. That was insane. I have some questions about the ending of this book, though. Like, why did Mercy Morn and Augustine think that they could kill God without destroying Alecto? Because they had to know about Alecto. They were part of this plan to get God's DNA in the form of a child in order to open the tomb. But then it seems like that plan was kind of aborted. So also, are they part of Blood of Eden? Were Mercy Morn and Augustine part of Blood of Eden? First question. Second question, this whole plan to conceive of Gideon, to have a child to open up the tomb, was that just aborted? And if so, why did they think that they could go ahead and kill the Emperor without killing Alecto, because they had to know that that was the key to killing him. So why did she think that she could kill him? I don't understand that. And also, what exactly did happen when she killed him? Because something did happen. And we honestly don't even really figure out what in Nona. So those are my questions I would like to be answered in the last book. Okay, so it's like hours later. But real quick, I just realized there are two very important things I forgot to talk about with Harrow. One is the fake memories, right? So the other POV that's not the second person Gideon POV, right, is just the third person like memories of stuff that didn't happen that get progressively more and more unhinged and insane and kind of turn into these like these like unhinged AUs, like these alternate universes. And that was, dude, when it like turned into like it straight up like turned into like a fucking coffee shop AU at one point, where she was like looking at the barista and the barista had red hair and she was like, oh, and then it was like a fucking like almost like a bachelor or a bachelorette AU or something, or some kind of like competition that they were all like trying to like win over the affection of the empress. I was like, what the fuck? I feel like that had to be Tamsin Muir just like throwing an Easter egg to like all the fan fiction writers out there, because I think she used to write fan fiction, if I'm not mistaken, which no hate to her for that at all, like I totally respect that, but like I just think that that's so funny. Like I was just dying. So those were so good, and again, just a testament to how good the writing in this book was, that was able to be pulled off, because that was insane. And I feel like it did work. Like you got the sense by that point that like this shit is just like not real, like this is just kind of like a dream, like it's not really happening. And so, but it was kind of an interesting twist that it was actually kind of like a play that was being acted out in the river. I didn't guess that. I thought it was just some fucked up weird dream memory shit that was happening, but it was like they were all like acting it out, which was kind of insane. Like just imagine them getting the script and being like, what the fuck are we doing? So that was weird, but again, pulled off. Like the structure of this book, so weird. The fact that it opens up with the like climax, basically. Also, I had to like, when we got to that part of like actually in the book of right before the emperor dies, I like went back and read the prologue, and if you didn't do that, I suggest if you read it again to do that, because then you actually get like more detail by doing that. It was really interesting. But anyway, that just like was really fun, and also just made the structure of this book even more amazing. And then the second thing I have to talk about, which I can't believe I forgot to talk about, is the fucking arm scene. The arm scene in this book is one of the most iconic things. That scene, I swear to God, that scene is the most explicitly sexual scene in any of these books. When Harrow is regrowing Ianthe's arm, that scene was so homoerotic, and for what reason, I don't know, but I was like, oh my god, like this is sex, like in this world, like this is like, forget everything you think you know about what sex is for the lesbians in this world, because with the lesbians in this world, I swear to God, first base is I'm going to bare my soul to you and tell you my deepest, darkest secrets while we huddle together in a pool. Second base is I'm gonna die for you and give you my soul and let you use my soul to fuel your godhood. Third base is I'm going to keep your entrails from spilling out after you've been stabbed and I've woken up in your body. And then fourth base is whatever the fuck was going on when Harrow was regrowing Ianthe's arm. Oh my god. That was so iconic. I could never have, again, could never have conceived of that scene being the way it was. It was so fucking good. Okay, I just had to mention that. I could not let this video go on without me talking about that. So anyway, back to the regularly scheduled video. All right. Lastly, let's talk about Nona the Ninth. So, like I mentioned in my last video, I could not really follow the politics of this to save my life. I don't really understand. Is everyone who is not part of House, like, loyal to the Emperor, is everyone who's not that, like, part of Blood of Eden? Or are there, like, multiple rebel groups? Like, I was kind of confused about that, because we have these people, like, We Suffer, and, Crown, and Pash, and all of those people. They're all part of Blood of Eden, right? But they're, like, part of is it, like, a sect of Blood of Eden? And, like, who are, like, the Hopers were another thing that was mentioned? Are those another, like, is Blood of Eden divided into sects? Like, I don't understand the organization of these groups. So I would like someone to explain that to me, please. But I will say, I definitely guessed correctly who Nona was. I didn't know ahead of time. Well, I think I did know that Alecto was the soul of a planet. I think that's what I knew from, again, like, being spoiled on Tumblr or something. Like, Alecto is some kind of planet soul. I was like, okay. But I didn't know that Nona was Alecto, but I did guess that. So going into this book, also the fact that knowing that this was supposed to be Alecto and was, like, cut into 2 books, I was like, okay, so it was probably all told originally, like, this was supposed to originally be told from Alecto's point of view, which means that Nona is Alecto, right? Like, that just kind of makes sense. So yeah, I did kind of figure out that Nona is probably Alecto and Alecto is Earth, which is crazy. Like, Alecto is Earth, Nona is Earth, and the fact that Nona is Earth makes so much sense. And it's also so, like, heartbreaking, because it's basically like Nona is Alecto without Alecto's memories, which means she's Earth without the memories of what happened to Earth and what John fucking did. And so it's kind of like Earth without the memories of violence that was done to her is this just, like, beautiful, loving, like, soul filled with, like, joy and wonder and love for everyone. And that is so beautiful and, like, heartbreaking to know that that's, like, who Earth and, like, Nona is at her core. But then, like, because of all the shit that happened, like, becomes this just, like, super fucking angry and vengeful, and rightfully so, like, just fucked up person, right? So I'm really excited to see how that plays out in Alecto. Also, can I just get a moment of silence for the fact that John made Alecto. John created the body of Earth and made it look like Barbie. Okay. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Also, I saw a post that was like, this was the original Barbenheimer, because he literally blew up, like, the Earth with atomic bombs and created a body for the Earth that looks like Barbie. So I don't know. I don't know. That was insane. I actually think I preferred the John chapters. I really liked hearing that backstory from John's point of view. And I kind of like hearing John talk. I know that he's a horrible person and a despicable character, but like the way that he tells stories is very like fun for me to listen to because he has a lot of humor. You can definitely see how he's related to Gideon in like the way that he talks and the humor that he uses. And I just found it very fascinating, and I really liked reading from his point of view. And I can definitely, it's not that I like sympathize with him, that like I think he was right, but like I can see why he did what he did, you know? Like I don't agree with it, but it makes sense. Like you can see the downward spiral. You can see how things happened that way. And it's just like, I don't know. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I fucking loved the found family with Nona and Pyrrha and Palamedes and Camilla. It was so good. I was so mad every time Nona told them that she loved them. I was like, why don't any of y'all say it back? Why don't you fucking say it back? Tell her you love her back right now. I was so mad. They did at the end. They all told her they loved her at the end, and that made me cry so hard. The only time, I think that's the only time I actually really cried, is at the end when Nona is basically dying and she's like, I'm not gonna remember that I loved you. And then they're like, it's okay, like you can't take loved away. Like, it's over, it's done. Nona loved Camilla and Palamedes and Pyrrha, and we loved you, and that's done. We can't take that away. And Pyrrha was like, I'm never gonna stop loving you. I was like, that made me fucking cry. Oh my god, that was so beautiful. God. That was beautiful. I loved that. I loved their whole found family. Oh my god. I love Pyrrha. I fucking love Pyrrha as a character. Like, so good. So hot. I love her. Alright, we need to talk about Camilla and Palamedes. I'm kind of avoiding talking about it because what the fuck? I don't even know what the fuck to say. I don't even know what the fuck to say. That scene was beautiful, but I was so like freaked out by what was happening that I don't even think I could fully like enjoy it, because I was just like, what the fuck are they doing? They are literally merging their souls to become one person. I don't even know, dude. That like just I don't even know where to begin with that. It kind of freaked me out, to be honest. Like I wanted to find it beautiful, but I was a little bit too disturbed. Which is kind of saying a lot, because there's a lot of disturbing shit that goes on in these books. For that to be the one thing that I was like, I don't know. I feel like this is something I have to unpack in like therapy or something, because it's just like so much. But yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful scene. I'm just confused about what it means. Like, who does Paul have memories of both of them? You know, because in a sense, they had to both die in order to become one. So it's like, do they remember being both people? How does that work? I don't know. To me, it was kind of sad, because it's like, well, y'all aren't going to be able to like talk to each other anymore, you know? And isn't it better to like be your own person so that you can have a relationship and talk with each other and feel each other and see each other, even though they couldn't do that for the majority of the books, they were sharing a body, but still, at the end, they could, like, when Camilla was, like, avoiding looking at him when he, like, possessed Nabirius's body, I was like, oh my god. Then she was like, I will always know you, or something. I don't know. It was so beautiful. But I was like, you just got him, like, you just got him in another body. You can actually talk to him now, and now you're gonna, like, merge your souls? I don't even know. I don't know. I need some time to think about it. I need some time to let that sink in, because right now it's too freaky for me to, like, even think about. It's a little triggering for some reason. I don't know why. Again, I need to, like, unpack it in therapy or something. I mean, it's just, like, the definition of enmeshment, right? But, like, I don't know. It was beautiful, but it was like, what the fuck? Yeah. But I loved them. I loved those characters. I loved how we got to see their relationship. Yeah. Gideon. We got Gideon back. Sort of. We got a kind of weird Gideon back. We kind of got Gideon who died and came back wrong a little bit. Which I love. Kiriona? Interesting name. So, like, her body is dead, but part of her soul is possessing it. What happened to the other? So most of her soul was absorbed, right? Like, absorbed into Harrow, but it was preserved because Harrow cut out her memory of Gideon so that she wouldn't, like, fully absorb her soul, which is why Gideon was able to have consciousness in Harrow's body after Harrow left her body at the end of this book. So then, where is the rest of Gideon's soul that was in Harrow's body? Because I thought, the one thing I got wrong is I thought that, I did figure out that Nona was Alecto, but I thought that maybe Nona/Alecto had switched places with Harrow, and that Harrow was inhabiting Alecto's body for some reason. I didn't know how, but I thought they had, like, Freaky Friday swapped, and like Harrow was gonna wake up in Alecto's body in the tomb. That didn't happen. So it was kind of seemed like Harrow was just, like, squished at the back of the consciousness that was taking over her body. Because in the Jod chapters, it seemed like John was sometimes speaking to Harrow and sometimes Alecto. I kind of got the feeling that it was, like, Harrow looking through Alecto's eyes kind of thing. So, yeah, but so where is Gideon in that? If Harrow is, like, being squished into the back of her body that Nona is possessing, but Gideon was also in Harrow's body, but, like, part of Gideon's soul is now in Gideon's body, where's the other part? I just have so many questions, okay? I don't understand how this fucking soul shit works. So, yeah, but the Gideon that we did get in this book was interesting. She was interesting. I was not surprised to find that she became a little bit of an asshole. I would expect that. I mean, she's been through a lot. We don't really know what's been going on these past 6 or whatever months. That she's been with fucking John and Ianthe. Also, the plot twist that she and Ianthe are now besties was definitely something. I was like, what the fuck? I need to know how the fuck that happened. And, dude, when Nona kissed Gideon, oh my god, and she was like, you just looked like you needed to be kissed. I was like, oh my god. That was insane, and I need to know what the fuck Gideon was thinking. Like, had she already figured out that Nona was not Harrow? She must have caught on pretty fucking quick, because she was like, who the fuck is this infant in Harrow's body? And then at one point she asked her, she was like, where is she? First of all, she was like, where is she? I don't even care if she's in hell or at the bottom of space. I just need to know where she is. I was like, oh my god. And then she was like, okay, different question. Do you love her? I was like, that's an interesting question. Gideon is asking Nona if she loves Harrow? Question mark. What does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah, I also love how when after that part where Nona is describing her dream, to Camilla, and she's like, oh, she's like having visions of like the pool scene, right? And she's like having to demonstrate it on Camilla, and she's like, this is sexy. And then they have this whole conversation about what sexy is, and Nona finds flowers sexy, which is really funny. But then she's like, at one point she says like, I don't find redheads sexy. And then Palamedes comes in and he's like, ooh, that is very interesting, Nona. And he like writes it down, and I'm just like, the fact that he is like thinking that that is very pertinent information because Harrow would obviously find redheads sexy is so funny, because nothing explicit has happened between Gideon and Harrow, especially not at Cannon House when they were in this book. But the fact that Palamedes was able to pick up on like Harrow would probably find redheads sexy, so therefore Nona saying that she doesn't think redheads are sexy is a very vital piece of information. I was just like, they must have been like making fucking goo-goo eyes at each other this whole time and like thinking that, not even realizing it themselves and just being fucking oblivious. So I loved that, and I really need to know what the fuck Gideon was thinking when Nona kissed her, because that was that was so good. And then at the fucking end, Miss Alecto gets woken up when she fucking like grabs Harrow and like kisses her by like biting off her lips basically, and is like, is this not how meat loves meat? I was like, oh my god. And then I love at the end, we just hear Gideon say like, get in line, thou big slut. Which I think proves that she is jealous of Alecto because she's in love with Harrow. Okay? Yeah, so that's really all I have to say about this series as a whole. One thing I will leave this discussion on is a question for you, and please answer this in the comments of what you think this means. This series as a whole is very gay, right? We get the sense that Nona is pretty gay because she thinks that she is pretty much in love with Corona, and also seems to probably have some feelings of attraction towards Camilla. If Nona is gay, does that mean that the Earth is a lesbian? Please discuss down below and leave your comments. I would love to read them. And that's all I have to say about this wonderfully fucked up, beautiful fucking series. I'm sure by this point, if you've watched this far, you've already read it, so please tell me your fucking thoughts and tell me what you think is going to happen in Alecto. And stay tuned. I'm sure I'll talk about this more in the future. Thank you for joining me.